12-year-old Naomi Ellison sat in the third row, second seat from the window, arms crossed and eyes fixed on the algebra problem scrawled across the whiteboard. The equation shimmered faintly under the fluorescent lights, a puzzle far beyond the regular coursework. But Naomi welcomed challenges. Numbers had a clarity to them that real life often lacked. The room hummed with the soft static of conversation. It wasn't loud, but it was just noisy enough to disappear into something Naomi had gotten good at doing at Clearwater Middle School in Boise, Idaho. She kept a low profile, followed the rules, stayed invisible. That was her formula. Don't draw attention, just get the work done. But something felt different that day. Mr. Redford, tall and silver-haired with a smirk that seemed stuck to his face, turned away from the board. His sleeves were rolled to the elbow like always, a marker cap clicking against his palm. "All right," he said, grinning. "If anyone can figure this one out, I'll start calling you Einstein." A ripple of laughter passed through the class. A few students groaned. Most avoided eye contact. Naomi's fingers twitched. She stared at the numbers again, mentally mapping out the solution step by step. Slowly, she raised her hand. Mr. Redford paused. "Ellison," he said, as if surprised she was even present. "You want to give it a try?" Naomi nodded, her throat tight. His smile widened, thin and amused. "Well," he said, "this one's not really solvable. Let's not waste time." A few kids chuckled. One boy in the back let out a fake laugh so loud it bounced off the walls. Naomi's face flushed, but she didn't lower her hand. Her eyes stayed on Mr. Redford, calm, steady, and silent. He gave a little shrug and waved dismissively, moving on. But for Naomi, it didn't move on. She dropped her hand slowly, deliberately, like folding away a thought she wasn't ready to lose. The class shifted their attention to the next problem, but Naomi's eyes didn't move. She stayed focused on that first equation. She knew what it felt like to be dismissed. This wasn't new. She was one of only 3 black students in the entire grade, and the only one in the advanced math class. Teachers were polite enough, but their smiles often felt hollow, encouraging on the surface, but never expecting much. Mr. Redford rarely called on her. Only when there was no other choice. Someone whispered behind their hand 2 seats over. Naomi couldn't catch the words, but the laughter that followed said enough. When the bell rang, the room erupted into motion, zipping backpacks, scraping chairs. Naomi stayed seated until the chaos ebbed. Mr. Redford capped his marker and began erasing the board. She stood but didn't head for the door. "Mr. Redford," she said. He turned, clearly surprised she was still there. "Yes. Can I have that problem?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" "The first one," Naomi said. "The one you said couldn't be solved." He looked at her a moment, then reached into the tray beneath the board and pulled out a sheet of paper. "Sure," he said, handing it over like it was a joke. "Knock yourself out." She took the page without flinching, slid it into her math folder, and left without another word. But she didn't forget about it. She didn't toss it aside or let it go. She went home to solve it. Naomi walked the familiar 2 blocks back, past the tilted sign above the corner gas station and the laundromat Naomi passed every day still smelled like singed dryer sheets. Her backpack bounced with every step, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts were somewhere else, on the folded sheet in her front pocket. The impossible problem her teacher had dismissed. At home, the air was thick with the scent of seasoned chicken and green beans. Her mom, Denise Ellison, was moving between 2 stove burners and the air fryer like a chef in the middle of dinner rush. "You're home early," her mother called, glancing over her shoulder. Naomi let her backpack slip off beside the dining table, but didn't respond immediately. She slid into the corner chair, her usual homework spot. The same one her older brother always used before heading off to college. She pulled out the crumpled sheet, unfolded it, and laid it flat in front of her. "Everything okay at school?" Denise asked, peeking in from the kitchen. Naomi gave a faint nod. "Yeah, just got a math problem I want to work on." Her mom wiped her hands on a towel and walked over to glance at the page. "That's not the usual assignment." "It's not," Naomi said quietly. "My teacher said it couldn't be solved." Denise raised an eyebrow. "And you took that as a challenge?" Naomi gave a tiny, lopsided smile. "Something like that." Her mom leaned down, kissed the top of her head, and went back to the kitchen. "You've got your dad's brain. You'll figure it out. I know you will." Naomi didn't say anything back, but those words stayed with her, being trusted without needing to earn it. That quiet confidence pushed her to dig deeper. She got to work. The pencil tapped. Eraser crumbs dusted the table. Paper edges grew worn from being flipped and refolded. At first, the numbers resisted her efforts. The formulas twisted in ways that didn't feel quite right. But the longer she stared, the more things began to shift, not falling into place all at once, but revealing themselves in pieces. Tiny breakthroughs. She worked until dinner, ate with one leg bouncing under the table, then went back at it. By 9:40 p.m., her bedroom floor was a mess of torn notebook pages and failed starts. Naomi lay on her stomach, cheek pressed to her arm, eyes locked on the same line of numbers for what felt like the 100th time. And then something clicked. A tiny thread appeared between two pieces she hadn't connected before. She sat up slowly, took a breath, started again. This time, it wasn't guesswork. Every step followed naturally into the next, her pencil gliding instead of stalling. A path was forming. She could feel it. She checked her work twice, then a third time. And then, without even thinking, she started over from scratch. Not to correct anything, but to try a different approach. A new method, just to see if it would work another way. Around midnight, her mom peeked into the room. "You're still at it?" she asked softly. Naomi looked up, eyes wide and a little glazed over. "I think I got it." Denise smiled, but there was a hint of concern in it. "Maybe, it's late." "I know," Naomi whispered. "But I did it. I really did." She held up two sheets, one with her first solution, the other with a cleaner, alternate method. She looked at her mom like she was holding proof of something more than a math answer. Denise sat beside her on the carpet, took the pages, and studied them in silence. "You're going to take these to school Monday, right?" Naomi nodded slowly. Her mom sighed. "All right then. Just don't go showing off too much." Naomi grinned. "I'm not. I just want him to see." But she wasn't prepared for how different it would feel walking back into that classroom. Saturday blurred by. Naomi didn't sleep in. By 7:30 a.m., she was already at the kitchen table, her papers laid out in careful stacks, her pencils sharpened to fine points. Her calculator sat nearby, used only for verification, never to guide. From the doorway, her mom watched with a steaming mug of coffee. "You sure you don't want to check out that robotics demo at the rec center?" Without looking up, Naomi shook her head. "Maybe next time." Denise studied her a moment longer, then nodded and left her to it. Naomi wasn't just reviewing. She was preparing, testing herself, building something solid that no one could dismiss. Later that afternoon, her little sister Zoe burst through the living room, dragging a blanket like a royal cape. "Naomi," she sang, "come be my math wizard." Naomi didn't glance up. "Later," she murmured. "You always say that," Zoe huffed, but Naomi meant it this time. She rewrote her solutions, twice, on fresh paper. Then she began another copy. Naomi made another copy, then one more after that. She didn't want it to look sloppy, especially not if she was going to hand it to Mr. Redford. She didn't want to give him any reason to dismiss her work. She even thought, for a moment, about typing it up. By Sunday morning, she had two folders, one packed with the raw, scribbled notes, messy, crossed out, real, and another with a polished version, both methods boxed clearly, each step labeled with careful penmanship. Her name sat in tiny print at the top right of each page. Still, something nagged at her. What if he didn't care? What if he glanced at it, shrugged, and moved on? She stared out the window for a long time. Outside, her mom was trimming the hedges. Zoe was busy chalking smiley faces onto the sidewalk. The world kept spinning like nothing had changed, but in Naomi's head, everything had. That evening, her mom called her into the kitchen. A pie sat cooling on the stove, apple, her favorite. Denise handed her a plate, then took a seat across from her with her own slice. "Come eat," she said gently. Naomi sat, fork in hand, but hadn't taken a bite yet. Her mother's voice was soft. "You sure you want to bring that to him tomorrow?" Naomi nodded, a little hesitant. "You're not doing this to prove anything to him, or to anyone, but for yourself, right?" Naomi hesitated. "I don't know." Her mom reached across the table and took her hand. "People like Mr. Redford, sometimes they've been carrying around blind spots for a long time. When someone shines too bright, they don't always know what to do with it." Naomi's eyes dropped to the untouched pie. "But you show them anyway," Denise added. "Not to make them feel small, just so they have a chance to see what they missed the first time." Naomi looked back up. "Even if they never admit they were wrong?" she asked quietly. "Even then," her mom said. That night, Naomi packed slowly. She slid the clean folder into a plastic sleeve, picked out her outfit like it was picture day. She didn't plan on standing in front of the class, but deep down, Maybe she hoped she would. Not for revenge, just for the space to be seen. Naomi didn't eat much breakfast. She drank her juice, tied her shoes tight. The sky was cloudy but dry as she walked to school, gripping her backpack strap just a little tighter. Inside, the halls buzzed with the usual chaos, slamming lockers, kids shouting too loud, sneakers squeaking on the tile, but Naomi moved through it like she wasn't really there. She reached room 206 just as the bell rang. Mr. Redford was already writing on the board, his back to the class. She slipped into her seat, folder still zipped inside her bag, her heartbeat loud in her ears. He didn't glance at her, didn't say anything about Friday. Naomi didn't raise her hand. Not yet. The lesson started as usual. Mr. Redford spoke quickly, his voice bouncing between formulas and fast examples, most students barely keeping up. Naomi sat still, her folder resting beneath her notebook, unopened. She didn't want to push it. She wanted him to see her, to recognize what he'd ignored. But 20 minutes passed, and there was no sign he remembered. No double take. No mention. Just math and markers. Then something surprising happened. A hand went up, but not Naomi's. It was Joshua Levine, loud, always cracking jokes, usually more about soccer than schoolwork. But today he looked serious. Mr. Redford, he asked. Can we go back to that problem from last week? The hard one. Redford paused, marker in midair. Which one? The one you said nobody could solve. A ripple of reaction moved across the room. Some kids chuckled. A few whispered. Redford gave a small laugh. That one wasn't really meant to be solved. It was just to challenge your thinking. But what if someone did solve it? Josh asked, his eyes drifting to the side. That's when Naomi felt it. Half the class turning toward her. Still, she didn't move. Not yet. Redford chuckled again. Well, I guess they'd be smarter than me. Silence. Naomi pulled the folder from her bag. This time, her hands were steady. She raised her hand, straight, confident. Redford hesitated, his eyes locking with hers. The room went still. You want to give it a shot now? He asked. Naomi didn't speak. She just stood up and walked to the front, folder in hand. No one laughed. No one whispered. She laid the papers on the desk, picked up a fresh black marker, and faced the board. The old problem was still faint under the new scribbles. She erased the newer writing and rewrote the original equation. She turned to the class. There are 2 ways to solve it. I wrote them both out, if you want to check later. Redford blinked, then stepped aside. Go ahead. Naomi turned back to the board and began. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. Steady. She moved through the first solution, marking each step. She paused to ask, following so far. Silence. She continued, finishing the method cleanly and boxing the answer. Then she flipped the page. This one takes longer. But it works even if you don't remember how to factor, she explained. Her tone never shifted. She wasn't bragging. She was explaining, teaching. When she finished, she capped the marker and quietly walked back to her seat. Stillness. Then, dang, Josh muttered. A girl in front whispered, she really solved it. From the back, someone clapped. Then another. And another. It wasn't thunderous, but it was real. Mr. Redford stepped forward, picked up the pages, scanned them for a moment. When he spoke, his voice had softened. Well, looks like I was wrong. Naomi looked him in the eye for the first time since Friday. Yeah, she said. You were. The bell rang, but no one moved at first. Like something had shifted. Like they didn't want to break the silence just yet. Naomi calmly packed her things, placed her folder back into her bag, zipped it up. As she headed for the door, Josh leaned in. Yo, that was fire. For real. Naomi gave a small nod. Thanks. She didn't have much more to say. The hallway felt louder now, but Naomi walked through it differently. Not taller, but firmer. She didn't feel like she had to disappear. Around the corner, she heard her name. Naomi. It was Camille Dorsey. Loud. Always at the center of things. Always noticed. She jogged up. You really solved that. Naomi nodded. Yeah. That was crazy. Even Mr. Redford looked like he saw a ghost. Naomi shrugged. It wasn't impossible. Camille flipped her braid and laughed. Girl, you made him eat his own words. That was legendary. A few more students lingered nearby. Some looked at Naomi like they were seeing her for the first time. No mocking. No avoidance. Just recognition. I didn't even get the first step, one boy muttered. Same, another added. Naomi didn't smile, but she didn't lower her gaze either. She opened her locker, swapped out her books. Like it was any other day. Down the hall, Mr. Redford passed, a stack of papers in hand. He glanced at her, kept walking. No nod, no words, just forward motion. She sat in her usual spot at the back of the cafeteria, halfway through her sandwich, when Principal Marcia Linwood appeared. "Naomi, you got a second?" Naomi blinked. Sure." She followed Linwood to the front office. Inside were the assistant principal and Mr. Patel, the school counselor. Linwood smiled and gestured to a chair. "We heard what happened this morning. Mr. Redford shared your work with us." Naomi sat straighter. "Oh." Mr. Patel leaned forward. "We'd like to nominate you for the Regional Math Showcase next month. It's in Spokane. Weekend event. Brings together top students from schools across the area." Naomi blinked again. "Really?" Linwood nodded. "We think you'd represent Clearwater Middle very well." Naomi's stomach turned. This wasn't what she expected. She hadn't done this for attention. All she'd wanted was for Mr. Redford to see. Now the whole school was looking. Can I talk to my mom about it first?" "Of course," Mr. Patel replied. "We'll send the information home today." As Naomi walked back toward the cafeteria, her steps felt unusually light. A swirl of excitement and uncertainty moved through her, because now it wasn't just about solving a math problem. Now, people were noticing her. That afternoon, during last period, her language arts teacher, Ms. Barlow, paused in the middle of the lesson. "Naomi," she said, "I heard what happened in math class." That was impressive. Half the class turned to look at her. Naomi didn't respond aloud. She simply nodded. When the final bell rang, she headed out to find her mom waiting in the car. "How'd it go?" Denise asked as Naomi fastened her seatbelt. Naomi handed over the flyer. "They want me to go to Spokane next month." Her mom read it slowly, then glanced at her. "You serious?" Naomi nodded. "Well," Denise said as she started the engine, "I guess that unsolvable problem did more than get solved." But the truth was, the hardest part had never been the math. It was facing the people who'd never expected her to succeed in the first place. The next morning, Naomi entered room 206 just like any other day. Same chair, same creaky desk, same little scratch on the seat that caught her sweater if she wasn't careful. But something was different. The air felt heavier. Kids who'd never said more than 2 words to her now watched her from the corners of their eyes. A girl leaned over and whispered to a friend, glancing her way. Naomi couldn't hear what was said, but she understood the look. Mr. Redford came in just before the bell. No greeting. No mention of what had happened Friday or Monday. He dove into a new lesson like the previous days had never occurred. Naomi hadn't expected a grand apology, but a simple acknowledgement would have been enough. Just something to show he saw her differently now. Instead, he handed out a worksheet like it was any other Tuesday. Naomi completed the problems with ease, but her focus drifted. Not because the math was hard, it wasn't. It was the silence that echoed louder than anything else in the room. After class, she stayed behind again, letting everyone else file out. When it was just the two of them, she approached his desk. He looked up. "Need something?" Naomi hesitated, then pulled the folder from her bag. "These are the original pages. From the weekend. You said I could bring them." Redford took the folder and barely skimmed the top page. "Thanks," he said blandly. "I already shared the copies with the principal." That was it. "No, well done. No, you were right. Just thanks." Naomi lingered, waiting, hoping he'd say something more. But he was already stacking papers. "Naomi." She paused. "You're very bright. Just be careful." "Careful." He nodded. "Some kids don't take it well when someone makes them look bad." Naomi didn't respond. She simply left. The words stayed with her, not for what they meant, but for what they failed to acknowledge. That afternoon, Mr. Patel called her into his office again. "We spoke with your mom. You're approved for the Spokane trip. Registration's done." Naomi nodded slowly. "I want to be clear," he added, leaning in slightly. "This isn't about one math problem. It's about how you think, how you reason. That can't be faked." Naomi nodded again. "But," he continued, "you'll meet students at that showcase who've never had to fight to be seen. Don't let that shake you." She looked him in the eye. "I won't." He smiled. "Good." That night, Naomi sat at the kitchen table, no equations in front of her, just quiet thoughts. Her mom joined her, tea in hand. "You okay?" Naomi hesitated. "I thought he'd say something." "Redford?" "Yeah. After everything. I thought he might admit he was wrong." Her mom didn't answer right away. "Some people find it easier to doubt you than to admit they misjudged you." Naomi nodded. But what you didn't just solve a problem. You stood up, in front of people who never expected you to, and you showed them who you are. That matters. Naomi looked up. I think I scared him. Denise smiled. Good. Sometimes people need a little shake to see clearly. Naomi didn't smile right away, but she reached for her folder and quietly started writing again. Before she could move on, though, she knew there was one last decision to make. One that would help define the kind of person, not just the kind of student, she wanted to be. 2 days later, Naomi stood in the cafeteria with her lunch tray, scanning the room. For once, there were open seats at the front. Kids she'd never spoken to before shifted over, clearly saving her a spot. But Naomi walked past them. She headed for her usual seat in the back, by the faded mural of mountains. She wasn't trying to make a statement. She just wasn't interested in playing a new role that didn't feel like her. As she sat down, a voice called out, Yo, Naomi. It was Josh. He slid into the seat across from her, half-eaten apple in hand. You're going to Spokane, right? Naomi nodded. That's wild. You nervous? A little. Josh shrugged. You shouldn't be. You killed it. Twice. Naomi looked at him. It wasn't really about the problem. He raised a brow. Then what was it about? She thought for a second. It was about being allowed to try. Josh fell silent. He chewed slower. That's real, he said. Some of us never even think about that part. Naomi offered a small smile. That's kind of the problem. He laughed a little, shaking his head. Man, I wish I had your brain. No, she replied, still smiling. You should want your own. You just have to trust it. He looked at her like that was a brand new thought. Later that afternoon, during study hall, Naomi sat with an open notebook. She wasn't writing formulas. She was writing ideas, questions that had been swirling in her mind for days. What does smart look like to people? Why does confidence sound like arrogance if it comes from the wrong voice? What if proving yourself isn't the point? What if knowing is enough, even when no one else sees it yet? She was still scribbling when Ms. Barlow stopped by, tapping lightly on the desk. You've had quite the week. Naomi looked up. Yeah. I hope you know you didn't just teach your class something. Naomi tilted her head. What do you mean? Ms. Barlow pulled up a chair. You reminded people what's possible when someone is given space to grow. And not everyone's brave enough to demand that space. Naomi didn't reply, but those words stayed with her. By Friday, things had quieted. Kids stopped staring. Teachers stopped whispering. But Naomi had changed. Not louder, but stronger. On her way out of school that afternoon, she passed room 206. The door was open halfway. Mr. Redford was inside, grading papers. Naomi paused. She could have stepped in, said something, asked a question, tried once more for recognition. But she didn't. Not because she was afraid, because she didn't need his validation anymore. That weekend, her mom took her shopping for a winter coat. February in Spokane wouldn't be gentle. They found a navy blue one on clearance, soft-lined and warm. Naomi tried it on, studying her reflection in the mirror. You ready? Denise asked, standing behind her. Naomi nodded. Yeah. That night, as they packed for the trip, Denise slipped a folded note into Naomi's folder. Don't open it until you're on the bus. The next morning, Naomi boarded with her backpack, coat zipped, folder tucked under her arm. As the driver started the engine, she opened the note. It read, Whatever room you walk into, walk like you belong, because you do. Naomi folded the note and slipped it into the back of her math folder. The bus pulled away from the curb. Naomi looked out the window, not to see what she was leaving, but to imagine everything she might build next. Every child deserves to be seen for who they are, not who someone assumes they'll be. And if you're someone like Naomi, don't wait for the world to approve of you. Know your worth. Carry it with pride. And teach them how to see it.